What if I told you money wasn't invented to make life easier? It was invented to make you easier to control. We've all felt it. Prices rising, wages frozen, savings shrinking. You work harder every year, but somehow the world keeps getting more expensive. Inflation, debt, economic cycles. We're told it's normal, but what if it isn't? What if it's the design? Because once upon a time, a single coin destroyed an empire. And that same trick, that quiet, clever theft, has been repeated for centuries, all the way to your digital bank account today. The story of the coin that ended a kingdom isn't just about ancient history. It's about how the most powerful weapon in human history isn't an army, it's currency. And the terrifying truth? The same forces that ended kingdoms then are doing it again, only this time they've made sure you can't escape. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see exactly how money was hijacked, how your freedom was priced, and why this system only ends one way. Before we dive in, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments, because this story belongs to all of us. And if you're tired of the polished lies about economic growth, hit subscribe, because here we talk about the unfiltered truth. Let's rewind 2,000 years back. Ancient Rome, the superpower of the world. Roads, armies, trade stretching across continents, and at the heart of it all, the denarius. A small silver coin stamped with the face of the emperor. The denarius was more than money. It was trust, real metal, real value. When a Roman soldier was paid in denarii, he wasn't getting paper promises. He was getting silver he could hold, trade, or melt down. But empires have a fatal flaw. They always spend more than they earn. Rome had wars to fight, roads to build, monuments to construct, bread and circuses to keep the people happy. But silver? Silver doesn't grow on trees. So what did they do? They cheated. Around 64 AD, under Emperor Nero, Rome quietly began debasing its coinage. The silver content in the denarius dropped from 100% to 90% to 80%. A century later, it was less than 50%. By the 3rd century, some coins were barely 2% silver. The rest was cheap copper. But here's the genius part. The coins looked the same. The people still saw the emperor's face, still trusted the system, until one day, the truth hit. Their savings had been stolen by inflation. Sound familiar? That's not just ancient history. It's the same trick used by every modern state since. Only now, the coins are gone, replaced by paper, then digits on a screen. Rome's inflation was visible. You could see the coins changing color, feel them grow lighter. But today's version is invisible. A click, a keystroke, and billions are conjured from nothing. When Rome's citizens lost faith in the denarius, trade collapsed. Soldiers demanded payment in gold or goods. The empire's borders crumbled. Trust the true currency evaporated. Sound familiar again? When the U.S. dollar abandoned gold in 1971, President Nixon called it temporary, just like Nero's debasement. Temporary. 50 years later, the dollar is entirely faith-based, a fiat currency, backed not by metal, but by debt. Every empire, from Rome to Britain to America, follows the same pattern. 1. Real money. 2. Expansion. 3. Debt. 4. Debasement. 5. Collapse. And the weapon used every time? Control of the currency. Here's the twist. The same families and institutions that learned from Rome's collapse rewrote the rules of modern finance. The kings were replaced by bankers. The swords replaced by balance sheets. When money loses its anchor, someone else takes the wheel. Sound familiar yet? Because if you've ever wondered why your paycheck buys less every year while corporate profits soar, this is why. Inflation isn't an accident. It's a hidden tax. And it began the moment empires realized they could print obedience. Now here's where the story gets dark and very real. After Rome's collapse, European monarchs swore they'd never repeat the mistake. They established sound money, gold and silver coins, currencies you could trust. But power always finds a way. In 1694, something revolutionary and sinister was born: the Bank of England. For the first time, a private institution could create money on behalf of the crown. Instead of taxing citizens directly, the crown could borrow, creating debt-backed money, repaid through future taxes. The same mechanism spread: France, Holland, eventually the United States, with its Federal Reserve in 1913. Each step moved us further from real value, deeper into abstraction. This was the moment money stopped being a medium of exchange and became a mechanism of control. Because once governments could borrow from the future, you became collateral. Your labor, your time, your taxes, the invisible foundation propping up the illusion. The coin that ended a kingdom didn't just destroy Rome. It taught the next rulers how to end freedom quietly. Every note in your wallet, every number in your bank account is a denarius too, the same illusion, wrapped in modern branding. And the name of the person who made this transformation global? You won't believe the name. The receipt is wilder than you think. Let's unpack it. The modern financial system is built on fiat currency, money declared valuable by law, not by substance. The word fiat literally means let it be done. And just like a royal decree, fiat money exists because the state says so. But behind that command lies a machine, one that manufactures wealth for the few and inflation for everyone else. Here's how it works. When a government spends more than it earns, it borrows. It issues bonds, IOUs that promise repayment later with interest. These bonds are bought by banks, corporations, or other governments. Then, central banks like the Federal Reserve, the ECB, or the Bank of England buy those bonds back using money they create from nothing. Think about that. They print money to buy debt that creates more debt that requires printing more money. This is not economics. It's alchemy. And it's the same principle that destroyed Rome. Only now it's automated, global, and digital. In 1971, when Nixon cut the dollar's link to gold, 1 ounce of gold was $35. Today, over $2,000. That's not gold getting stronger, that's the dollar dying. Since 2008, central banks have printed over $25 trillion globally. That's roughly 25 trillion new dollars, euros, yen, and pounds created with a keystroke. Where did it go? Not to you, not to the middle class. It went to the banks, who used it to inflate asset prices, stocks, and real estate. The rich got richer, not because they worked harder, but because they owned the assets being inflated by your debt. That's the hidden design. When your government stimulates the economy, it's injecting fake liquidity into a system that rewards ownership, not labor. It's not trickle-down economics. It's siphon-up extraction. Every new dollar printed devalues every existing one. Inflation is not the rise of prices. It's the fall of currency value. Prices are just the symptom. And this isn't a glitch. It's the point. Because inflation quietly transfers wealth from savers to debtors, and who's the biggest debtor on earth? Governments and banks. You're just the guarantor, the collateral. Here's a number to burn into your mind. Since 1971, the US dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power. The same $100 that bought a week's groceries then barely buys a dinner today. In Rome, that process took centuries. Today, it takes decades. Tomorrow, it might take years. That's the acceleration. The machine is faster, smarter, greedier. When central banks implemented quantitative easing after the 2008 crash, they said it was to stabilize markets. But QE was just a polite phrase for institutionalized money printing. Between 2008 and 2020, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet exploded from $870 billion to $8.9 trillion. Trillions that never passed through your hands, but that made billionaires 70% richer during the pandemic. Meanwhile, you got stimulus checks crumbs from $1 trillion feast. Every empire does this. Every time it ends the same way. Rome debased silver. Britain issued paper. America digitized it. And now the next phase is programmable money. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. The logical endgame. No more cash. No privacy. Every transaction traceable, taxable, and if necessary, blockable. Imagine a world where your digital wallet can be turned off for misinformation or where your spending is restricted for climate reasons. That's not speculation. That's in official policy documents. The Bank of International Settlements calls it financial inclusion. But inclusion means control. A single digital coin, centralized by governments, can do what armies never could: end individual sovereignty. The same weapon that ended kingdoms is now being reforged in code. And remember that name I mentioned? The one who globalized the system? Mayer Amschel Rothschild, the 18th century banker who allegedly said, "Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws." Whether apocryphal or not, that idea became reality. His descendants and the network of financiers they spawned from London to New York built the modern central banking framework. Private ownership of public money, profit from debt, control through currency. It's not a theory, it's structure. Even today, the Federal Reserve isn't federal. It's a consortium of private banks, chartered by Congress but owned by its members. When the Fed creates money, it does so as debt with interest attached. So every dollar in existence is born in debt, meaning the system requires perpetual growth to survive. If growth stops, the pyramid collapses. That's why crashes are engineered resets, controlled demolitions to rebalance power. 2008 wasn't a mistake. It was a liquidity transfer. $10 trillion in wealth evaporated from the public, reappeared in corporate balance sheets, and was written off as bailouts. They didn't save the system. They reloaded it. This is why wages stagnate, why housing is unattainable, why your parents could buy a home with one income and you can't with two. The system doesn't reward productivity. It rewards proximity to the printer. And every solution from digital ID to universal basic income quietly ties you deeper to the same machinery. The ancient Roman coin, the denarius, was the prototype. The modern dollar is its perfected descendant. The coin that ended a kingdom has become the coin that ends nations. We've come full circle. 2,000 years ago, Rome fell because its citizens lost faith in the money that fed its empire. They realized too late that their wealth had been siphoned by the very leaders sworn to protect them. Today, we're living in a digital Rome faster, larger, and far more fragile. When currency becomes code, power becomes absolute. The next collapse won't come from swords or armies. It'll come from servers, from silent algorithms that decide who gets to spend and who doesn't. This isn't just a story about history. It's a warning about the future. The weapon that ended kingdoms is still in use, only the faces have changed. The emperors wear suits now. The temples are glass towers. The taxes are invisible. And the tragedy? Most people won't see it until it's too late. Denial is easy. Convenience is seductive. But freedom, real freedom, demands awareness. Every empire falls the same way, by trusting its own illusion. So, the question is, are we wiser now, or just walking the same path in better suits? If you've made it this far, you're already part of the 1% who ask questions. The next step is sharing this truth. Spread it, comment, subscribe, because the only antidote to control is knowledge. The coin that ended a kingdom is being minted again. And this time, it's you on the other side of the stamp.